Welcome back to the Librihouse Podcast. We are diving into another one of those Librihouse ebooks, the ones we've been talking about.
Yeah.
This time, it's Life of Jane Austen. And you won't believe the price.
I know, right?
It's only $1.99.
Seriously. It's such a steal, especially for such an insightful biography.
Okay, so let's dive in. We're going beyond just the typical Jane Austen facts. We really want to explore what made her such a revolutionary writer, especially way back in Regency England.
Yes, exactly. It's a completely different world than what we're used to. Imagine your entire future, your livelihood, your social standing, all hinges on marriage, and not just any marriage, a good marriage.
Oh, wow.
One that elevates your status, one that secures your financial future.
So much pressure. And it's amazing that amidst all of that, Austen created these sharp, witty heroines who challenged the status quo. It's no wonder her stories still resonate with us centuries later.
Right. And Life of Jane Austen gives us a glimpse into how her own life experiences shaped her writing. We learn about her childhood in Steventon, this charming little village. She was one of 7 children.
7 children. I can only imagine those dinner table conversations. What a setting for a budding writer.
Oh, absolutely. The book highlights how Austen, even as a young girl, was incredibly observant of the social dynamics around her.
So it's like the seeds of her social commentary were planted right there in Steventon. But the book also talks about a significant move. That impacted her writing to Bath. Why was that such a turning point for Austen?
Bath was completely different from Steventon. It was a fashionable city, all about appearances and social climbing. Very different. It stifled her creativity.
Makes sense. But you said it ultimately influenced her writing.
It did. Even though Bath was frustrating, it also provided Austen with a whole new set of material for social satire. She began to see the absurdity of the social rituals, the obsession with status, the shallowness.
So it became a source of inspiration, even if it wasn't the kind she was hoping for. Now, the book also mentions the importance of libraries in Austen's life. I'm guessing it wasn't just about access to books.
You're right. Libraries back then were social hubs, especially for the gentry. They were places to gather, discuss the latest novels, exchange ideas.
Like a 19th century intellectual salon.
Exactly. Or even, dare I say, an early version of our podcast.
I love that analogy. It makes those literary gatherings come alive. It's fascinating to think about Austen engaging in these lively debates, honing her wit and intellect through conversation.
And through Life of Jane Austen, we get these wonderful insights into her development as a writer. We learn about her early writings, which the book refers to as her juvenilia.
Juvenilia.
What exactly is that?
Think of it as Austen's early experiments with writing, little bursts of creativity from her teenage years.
No.
These weren't polished novels,
Yeah.
but they already showcase her sharp wit and fascination with relationships.
So it's like getting a sneak peek into the mind of a young Jane Austen. And the book really dives into Austen's process. It talks about her constant revisions, how she would painstakingly rework drafts, striving for clarity and precision.
A reminder that even literary geniuses don't just churn out masterpieces on their first try.
Exactly. The book also highlights Austen's relationship with her sister, Cassandra,
Yeah.
who was not only her closest confidant, but also her toughest critic.
I can only imagine those feedback sessions. Makes you wonder if Cassandra ever predicted just how famous her sister's work would become.
I'm sure those critiques were invaluable. Speaking of growth, let's delve into Austen's novels, starting with Sense and Sensibility. Everyone seems to have a favorite Dashwood sister. Do you?
Yeah, it's such a tough choice, Eleanor.
Hmm.
With her practicality and restraint is incredibly admirable. But I can't help but root for Marianne, even with all her passionate outbursts. I think we all have a bit of both sisters in us.
Absolutely. That's what makes Sense and Sensibility so brilliant. Austen isn't just presenting 2 different personality types. She's exploring 2 contrasting approaches to life. Eleanor embodies sense, prioritizing reason and pragmatism, while Marianne embodies sensibility, driven by emotion and romantic ideals.
And those approaches don't just play out on a personal level.
Right.
They're also heavily influenced by the societal expectations placed upon women.
Exactly. The book makes a great point about how Austen, through Eleanor and Marianne's journeys, critiques the limited options available to women.
Marriage wasn't just about love. It was a social and economic necessity.
Precisely. And that blend of social commentary and romantic storytelling is what makes Austen so compelling. She captures the human heart, with all its desires and vulnerabilities, while also exposing the societal forces that shape our lives.
Speaking of captivating stories, let's move on to Pride and Prejudice. What is it about Elizabeth Bennet that continues to captivate readers centuries later.
Elizabeth is a force of nature. She's intelligent, witty, and possesses a fierce independence.
You can practically hear the gasps from the Regency Society ladies,
Right.
challenging a man like Mr. Darcy. There's this delicious boldness to Elizabeth that resonates with modern readers.
And it's not just her defiance. She's also incredibly charming, relatable, and capable of growth. Her journey throughout the novel is about confronting her own prejudices and learning to see beyond surface appearances.
It's like Austen is saying, look, even the most intelligent and independent women can fall prey to societal biases.
Absolutely. Pride and Prejudice isn't just a charming romance. It's a subtle but scathing critique of the class system, the pressures of societal conformity, and the often absurd ways in which we judge each other.
Now, I know Mansfield Park
Yeah.
is often considered Austen's most morally complex novel. I haven't read it since high school. What makes it stand out?
Mansfield Park is fascinating because it introduces us to Fanny Price, who's vastly different from the likes of Elizabeth Bennet or the Dashwood sisters.
Okay.
Fanny is quiet, observant, and her strength lies in her unwavering moral compass.
So almost like a quiet rebellion.
Yes.
A refusal to compromise her values.
Exactly.
But how does that tie into the book's exploration of colonialism?
That's where the complexity comes in. Fanny's moral dilemmas are heightened by the fact that the Bertram family's wealth, the very foundation of their privilege, is derived from Sir Thomas's slave plantations in Antigua.
Wow.
Austen doesn't shy away from exposing the hypocrisy and moral compromises.
So it's not just about individual morality, it's about the systemic injustices.
Exactly. Austen invites us to question where wealth comes from and the ethical implications.
Yeah. Let's move on to Emma. She's a character who seems to have it all. Wealth, privilege, social standing. Or does she?
That's the brilliance of Emma. Austen uses her to explore the complexities of privilege and the dangers of unchecked self-confidence.
I remember finding Emma incredibly frustrating when I first read the book. She's so oblivious.
But then you realize that Austen is using her to expose the blind spots that can come with privilege.
Oh.
And it's through Emma's journey of self-discovery that we see her confront her own prejudices and assumptions.
It's like Austen is saying, even the most privileged individuals have lessons to learn. And true happiness comes from genuine connection, not social manipulation. Now, for something a little lighter, let's talk about Northanger Abbey.
Northanger Abbey. It's often seen as Austen's most playful and comedic novel, but there's a surprising depth to it as well.
I have to admit, I initially dismissed Northanger Abbey as just a silly parody, and those popular Gothic novels is that deeper layer.
Austen, through Catherine Morland's misadventures, is subtly critiquing the limited narratives available to women.
Okay.
Catherine's head is filled with these dramatic Gothic tales, full of mystery and intrigue.
And she ends up misinterpreting real life through that lens.
Exactly. It's a commentary on how women's perceptions of the world were often limited.
Oh, that makes Northanger Abbey so much more interesting.
Right.
It's like Austen is saying, let's question the stories we tell ourselves and the ways in which those stories shape our understanding of reality.
Precisely. And that's what makes Austen such a brilliant social commentator.
Okay, now for our final novel. Let's talk about Persuasion. It's often considered Austen's most mature and melancholic work.
Persuasion stands out because it deals with themes of regret, second chances, and the enduring power of love, even in the face of societal pressure and personal setbacks. The book highlights how Austen wrote this novel while facing her own health challenges.
Oh, wow.
Which adds a layer of poignancy to the story.
So it's like Austen is exploring these themes through the lens of her own experiences. Tell us more about Anne Elliot.
Anne is one of Austen's most complex and nuanced characters. Years before the novel begins, she was persuaded to break off her engagement with Captain Wentworth, a man of lower social standing, but with a promising future in the Navy.
Oh, I see. The pressure to conform to societal expectations.
Exactly. And when Anne and Wentworth are reunited years later, they're both older, wiser, and carrying the weight of their past decisions.
A story about second chances.
Absolutely. And Austen, with her keen understanding of human nature, captures the complexities of regret, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love.
And I can't help but notice that this is the second novel where Austen incorporates elements of the Navy after Mansfield Park. Why do you think that is?
That's a great observation. It's likely due to the influence of Austen's own brothers, Frank and Charles, who were both naval officers. Jane was incredibly close to her brothers and followed their career with great interest.
Makes sense. It adds a layer of authenticity to the portrayal of naval life.
Precisely. And it allows Austen to explore themes of social mobility and meritocracy.
It's a reminder that Austen was interested in a range of social dynamics and how individuals navigate the complexities of class and status. This has been an incredible overview of Austen's life and works. But I'm curious to dive a bit deeper into her personal life. The book mentions her own struggles to get published.
It's a stark reminder of the obstacles women writers faced in that era. Austen had to navigate those challenges with resilience and determination.
It's inspiring, and it makes me want to learn more about her personal life, particularly her romantic experiences. The book hints at a few intriguing possibilities.
It does. The book mentions a possible romance with a young man named Tom Lefroy, and there's also the mysterious Man of Sidmouth.
A real-life Austen novel unfolding.
They make you wonder how those experiences, those moments of love and loss, might have influenced her portrayal of relationships.
It's like we're piecing together a puzzle.
Exactly. And while we may never know the full story, those glimpses into Austen's personal life only add to the enduring mystery and allure of her work.
Now, I find it fascinating that even Austen's unfinished works, like Sanditon and the Watsons, are studied and analyzed today.
Those unfinished works provide a unique window into Austen's evolving interests and creative process. Sanditon, for example, shows a growing fascination with the burgeoning world of entrepreneurship and resort development.
So we're seeing Austen experimenting with new ideas.
Precisely. And the Watsons, though incomplete, offers a glimpse into Austen's continued exploration of social dynamics and the complexities of family relationship.
It's a reminder that even the greatest artists are constantly evolving.
It does. But the legacy she left behind is remarkable in its own right. Her 6 completed novels continue to captivate readers worldwide, and they've inspired countless adaptations, reinterpretations, and critical analyses.
It's a testament to the enduring power of her storytelling, her sharp observations of human nature, and her ability to weave social commentary into narratives.
Exactly. And Life of Jane Austen provides us with valuable context and insights.
And at that incredible $1.99 price point,
Right.
it's a steal.
It's the perfect companion for anyone who wants to rediscover Austen's work or explore it for the first time.
I'm so glad we had the opportunity to take this deep dive into Jane Austen's life and work. But I'm left with so many questions. The book mentions her financial struggles, particularly after her father's death. How did those experiences shape her views on love, marriage, and the role of money in society?
It's a fascinating question. It makes me want to revisit her novels with a fresh perspective. Did Austen's own anxieties about financial security influence her portrayal of characters who are striving for social and economic stability?
It's definitely something to consider. And it highlights how Austen's novels are more than just romantic tales. They're nuanced explorations of the social and economic realities of her time.
They are. And those themes continue to resonate with us today as we navigate our own complex relationships with love, money, and social standing.
This deep dive has sparked so many new insights for me, and I'm sure our listeners are feeling the same way.
I hope so. It's always a pleasure to delve into the lives and works of literary giants like Austen, and it's especially rewarding when we can do so with such a wealth of information at our fingertips, thanks to resources like the Librihouse series.
Speaking of resources, listeners, if you haven't already, grab a copy of Life of Jane Austen and let us know your thoughts.
What insights resonated with you?
What questions are you left with? We'd love to continue this conversation.
It's always enriching to hear different perspectives on Austen's work, and we're eager to engage with our listeners on this topic.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into a fascinating subject. Until then, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep those conversations going.
One thing that really struck me in Life of Jane Austen is the depth of her relationship with her sister, Cassandra.
Oh yeah, their bond went way beyond just being siblings.
They were best friends, confidants. And as we mentioned earlier, Cassandra was Jane's toughest critic and first reader.
It's like having a built-in editor who knows you better than anyone.
Right. And it wasn't just a professional relationship. They were personally very close, too. The book mentions how they would write letters to each other, full of observations about their family and friends.
Oh, I wish those letters had survived. They would offer so much insight.
I know. But even without them, we get a sense of the family dynamic that shaped Austen's worldview.
The book talks about how the Austen family would put on plays, read aloud, and have these lively debates about literature and current events.
So it sounds like a breeding ground for creativity.
And it wasn't just family. They were part of a wider social circle, with friends from all sorts of backgrounds.
Clergymen, landowners.
Even naval officers,
Right.
thanks to Jane's brothers Frank and Charles. Speaking of those naval connections, we talked about how they influenced persuasion. But I'm curious, how else did those relationships impact Austen's writing?
It's fascinating to think about how her brother's experiences in the Navy, their travels, their encounters with different cultures, and might have broadened Austen's perspective.
Especially at a time when travel was so rare.
Yes, especially for women.
It's like her brothers were windows to a wider world.
Exactly. Bringing back stories and perspectives that
Yeah.
she wouldn't have otherwise encountered.
Like her own personal research team.
Right.
It makes you wonder if some of her characters or plot points were inspired by real-life things her brothers told her.
We may never know, but it's clear that Austen's world was enriched by her brother's experiences.
Now, let's go back to Sense and Sensibility. We talked about how Eleanor and Marianne represent contrasting approaches to life, but let's delve a bit deeper into their journeys.
Okay, Eleanor, representing sense, is all about reason and self-control. She prioritizes duty and social decorum.
Always keeping it together.
But she's not just a paragon of virtue. She's complex, grappling with internal conflict.
Right. The book mentions how her love for Edward Ferrars is tested.
His secret engagement, his lack of fortune, the disapproval of his family.
It's enough to make anyone crack. But Eleanor holds it together.
She makes strategic decisions, protects those she loves.
It's a different kind of strength than we see with Marianne.
Oh, Marianne. She wears her heart on her sleeve. She falls head over heels for Willoughby, who's charming, but unreliable.
The classic whirlwind romance gone wrong.
It highlights the dangers of romanticizing everything.
We all have to learn to balance our hearts with our heads.
Exactly.
I also love how the book points out that Sense and Sensibility is not just a critique of societal expectations. It's a celebration of female friendship.
That's so important.
Eleanor and Marianne may have very different approaches to life, but their bond is strong. They're there for each other through thick and thin.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we don't have to go through tough times alone.
Speaking of strong women, let's move to Pride and Prejudice. We've talked about Elizabeth's revolutionary spirit, but what about her intelligence and wit?
She can hold her own in a battle of wits with Mr. Darcy. And it's not just that she challenges him, it's how she does it.
Yeah.
Austen gives Elizabeth such sharp dialogue. She uses irony, sarcasm, and playful banter.
It's like she's using language as a weapon.
Exactly. At a time when women were expected to be demure and submissive.
And to prioritize beauty over intelligence.
Marie.
Elizabeth throws all that out the window.
That's why she's such a timeless character.
Okay, now let's talk about Fanny Price in Mansfield Park. I know we touched on the moral complexity, but I'm curious. How does Fanny's strength manifest?
She's definitely a different kind of heroine. Her strength is internal. It comes from her unwavering moral compass. She's an observer. And her power comes from her ability to withstand pressure and stay true to her values.
It's almost like a silent force,
Exactly.
resisting all the negativity around her. But some people say she's too passive, especially compared to Elizabeth Bennet.
I think her strength lies in her integrity. She's not swayed by wealth or status. She sees through the people around her.
So, a kind of moral fortitude.
Yes.
It's a subtle but powerful form of strength.
Fanny's journey is no less compelling than Elizabeth's.
Okay, now let's talk about Emma. We talked about the complexities of privilege, but I'm curious, how does Austen use irony to show Emma's flaws?
Oh, the irony in Emma is brilliant. Austen creates this gap between what Emma thinks is true and what we know to be true.
So we're in on the secret.
Exactly. We watch her stumble through these misadventures.
Like watching a train wreck in slow motion.
Yeah.
But you know everyone's going to be okay.
And it's through those situations that Emma has to confront her shortcomings.
It's a humbling process.
Yeah, it is.
To realize you're not always right.
And that's what makes Emma so satisfying.
We see her evolve from this meddling matchmaker to a more empathetic person who understands true connection. Now for something lighter. Northanger Abbey. Catherine Morland has quite the imagination.
Oh, Catherine. Her head is filled with all these Gothic tales.
Full of mystery and intrigue.
And she sees them playing out in real life.
She's always misinterpreting things.
But Austen uses those misinterpretations to create humor and social commentary.
But beyond the humor, what is Austen saying about imagination?
Well, Catherine's imagination, while often misguided, is also a source of creativity and passion.
So it's like Austen is saying, let's celebrate imagination, even if it leads us astray sometimes.
Because it's also the source of so much joy.
Okay, now let's circle back to persuasion. We talked about regret and second chances. But what about the passage of time? How does that impact Anne and Captain Wentworth?
Years have passed. Since Anne and Wentworth's broken engagement, they've both changed.
It's like they're meeting each other again as strangers,
Exactly.
having to relearn who they are.
And it's through their interactions that we see those old feelings rekindled.
But they also have to confront the past.
Absolutely. They have to deal with their regrets and see if they can forgive each other.
Which makes Persuasion so poignant.
It's a mature exploration of love and loss.
And it shows the complexities of a second chance at happiness.
When you're no longer the same people.
Persuasion is also a story about resilience,
Absolutely.
about finding hope and happiness, even after experiencing disappointment and heartbreak.
Anne Elliot's journey is a reminder that it's never too late to find love.
I cannot help but notice this is another Austen novel where the Navy plays a significant role. What is it about the Navy that fascinates Austen?
The Navy represented adventure and opportunity. It was a path to success. That wasn't just about inherited wealth.
A microcosm of a changing society
Exactly.
where hard work can get you ahead.
And that's evident in Captain Wentworth's journey. He's a self-made man.
A stark contrast to the landed gentry who just inherit their wealth.
Austen uses the Navy to explore ambition, meritocracy, and the shifting social landscape.
It reminds us that Austen was interested in more than just romance.
Her novels offer a nuanced portrayal of a society in transition.
Now, let's talk more about Austen's personal life,
Yeah.
her romantic experiences.
Oh.
The book hints at some possibilities, but much of her life remains a mystery.
There's the possible romance with Tom Lefroy, a young Irishman she met as a teenager, charming and witty.
Sounds like a scene straight out of one of her novels.
Right. And then there's the Man of Sidmouth, a figure who briefly entered Austen's life.
During a trip to Sidmouth,
His identity remains unknown.
a tantalizing mystery.
It makes you wonder what might have happened if Austen had pursued those romantic possibilities.
Right. Would she have been a different writer
Who knows?
if she had married and had children?
It's important to remember that Austen chose to remain single and dedicate herself to writing.
It was a bold choice for a woman at that time.
It speaks to her independence and determination.
Now, it's fascinating that even Austen's unfinished works, like Sanditon and the Watsons, are still studied today.
They offer a glimpse into Austen's evolving interests. Sanditon shows a fascination with entrepreneurship and resort development.
So we're seeing her experimenting with new ideas.
Well, precisely. And The Watsons offers a look at social dynamics and family relationships.
Themes that are present throughout her work.
It's a reminder that artists are always evolving.
Makes you wonder what other masterpieces she could have written.
It does, but the legacy she left is incredible. Her 6 completed novels are still so popular.
It's a testament to the power of her storytelling. And Life of Jane Austen gives us valuable context.
It allows us to appreciate the complexities of her life.
And at that $1.99 price point,
Right.
it's a must-read.
It's the perfect companion for anyone who wants to learn more.
This deep dive has given me new insights. The book mentions her financial struggles. How did those experiences shape her views on love and marriage?
It's a fascinating question. Did her anxieties about money influence how she wrote about characters who were also looking for financial stability?
It's definitely something to think about. And it shows that Austen's novels are more than just romantic stories,
They explore the social and economic realities of her time
which are still relevant today.
as we navigate our own complex relationships with love and money.
This deep dive has sparked so many new insights.
I hope so. We'd love to hear from our listeners.
What resonated with you?
What surprised you?
Let us know.
It's always a pleasure to talk about Austen.
And thanks to resources like Librihouse,
Yeah.
we have so much information at our fingertips. Speaking of resources, grab a copy of Life of Jane Austen for that unbelievable price of $1.99.
Like most of the books in the series.
And let us know your thoughts.
Yeah, it's really interesting how Austen's financial worries show up in her novels.
Like she took those real-life anxieties and turned them into social commentary, like with the Dashwood sisters in Sense and Sensibility,
Yeah.
suddenly losing their inheritance, they have to scramble for security.
Exactly. And Mrs. Bennet, in Pride and Prejudice, she's so focused on marrying off her daughters to wealthy men.
Right.
It's funny, but also kind of desperate.
Which makes Elizabeth's refusal to settle even more powerful. She's risking her family's financial stability.
Absolutely. And even in Persuasion, Anne Elliot's family, they have financial problems too.
Right.
It adds another layer of tension to the story.
Austen reminds us that money plays a role in love and marriage.
Especially for women back then, who had few options for making your own money.
It's interesting that even when Austen was successful,
She wasn't wealthy.
so it wasn't about the money for her,
It seems like she was more passionate about her writing.
about exploring society and sharing her observations.
This deep dive has really shown me how much Austen's life is reflected in her work.
Me too. Like how her brother's naval careers shaped the themes in Persuasion.
It makes Captain Wentworth's world so much more vivid,
All those details about naval life.
and Captain Wentworth's success feels more significant, knowing that Austen saw that in her own family.
It adds so much depth to the story. And her male characters. They have ambitions and complexities too.
Austen captures those human dilemmas that we all face.
The pressure to conform. The desire for connection.
Right.
It's incredible how she explores those themes in these seemingly lighthearted stories.
There's always more than meets the eye. That's why we still love her books.
Before this deep dive,
Yeah.
I thought Northanger Abbey was a bit fluffy.
It is often seen as Austen's lightest novel.
But now I see it's more subversive. It critiques the narratives that were available to women back then.
Catherine Morland believes those Gothic tropes.
Because she's read so many of those stories.
It's like she can't separate fiction from reality
It makes you think about the stories we consume today.
and how they shape our own worldview.
Northanger Abbey is actually quite relevant to our modern world
It encourages us to think critically.
about the media we consume.
Austen's work is full of timeless themes.
This book made me wonder about Mansfield Park.
Ooh, what about it?
The book mentions that some people consider it to be her most morally complex novel. But it doesn't say why. So I'm curious, what do you think makes Mansfield Park so morally challenging?
That's a great question for our listeners.
We've covered so much about Jane Austen, but ultimately, it's her novels that truly speak to us.
And for just $1.99, you can explore even more with the Life of Jane Austen ebook.
Listeners, let us know your thoughts on Mansfield Park or anything else about Jane Austen. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, happy reading.